In Melee, controllers are everything. A good controller will allow you to easily pull off moves that could be nearly impossible otherwise. And a bad controller, well...
It feels like Zane's doing everything right, but Zane was covering everything.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes you do just get checkmated. Huh? It is a controller issue, 100% confirmed. Yeah, he's asking the crowd for a spare.
Now, for years, Melee diehards have modded their controllers, doing everything from cutting notches into the plastic all the way up to replacing the circuit boards inside them, all to find that slight edge. But the quest to god tier mod the game and its controllers alongside the rise of box controllers has raised an obvious concern. How far is too far? What should actually be allowed in pro play?
I hate this argument that unless a terrible player that has never won anything can win a major with it, it's not an advantage.
Is the hitbox cheating?
Yeah. We've gone too far, so it doesn't matter.
So should modded controllers and boxes really be considered cheating, or is the Melee community simply allergic to change? All right, so before we get into the Melee controller controversy, I need you to check out our new merch, including our zip-up Bader hoodie.
You can do it when you're at the lake or in the server, by yourself or with the buds. Never let anyone tell you it's wrong, because baiting, it always feels good. A zip-up hoodie made for all those who mastered the art of baiting. Check out theScore Esports Drop 2, available now.
Okay, so since the early days of Super Smash Bros., Melee competitors have been on a quest to find the perfect controller. Melee virtuoso Mewtwo King would even show up to events with a literal bag full of them.
It's so
My
good.
mom got me this. Your mom's cock blocking. That's what she's doing.
It's gotten so bad that there are players who have actually stepped down from tournaments because their controller wasn't performing the way they wanted it to. But why do players have this obsession with GameCube controllers? Don't they all do basically the same thing? Well, you see, no, they don't. At all. What's the difference between one controller and another, you ask? Honestly, I don't know. What I do know is that my good buddy Colten would love to talk you through the many shortcomings of the GameCube controller. Or, at the very least, he gets paid to. So, have at it, champ.
And now, the guy who actually knows what he's talking about.
Talk about one of the greatest esports of all time that just also happens to be played on controller. Yeah, I'm down for that. So, the original GameCube controllers were a quality assurance riddled nightmare. Despite looking nearly identical on the outside, the performance of any two GameCube controllers can vary drastically.
Keep flicking left on your control stick. And you can see if I do that with this controller, the control stick doesn't move to the right at all. If I do the same thing with his, yeah, you can see it bounce to the right sometimes. And if it does that, your controller has snapback, and that results into some improper reverse neutral beats.
Depending on when, and sometimes even where the controller was made, you could have different boards, wiring, sticks, triggers, you name it. One could have analog sticks with no snapback, while others might have severe snapback, causing players to miss inputs. Certain sticks could travel further in the horizontal direction, giving you an advantage by letting you move your character faster than your opponent. In some cases, the GameCube controller's analog sticks weren't even calibrated correctly out of the box, so although you might be moving the stick all the way to the left or right, they could drift vertically or not give you the full range of motion. The springs used in many triggers can also be quite different, meaning that the force required to fully press them down varies. And because of these issues, many serious players are constantly on the search for the perfect controller, getting them custom built with all the parts handpicked from other GameCube controllers and fine-tuned to fit their playstyle as seamlessly as possible. If you're into Melee, then you know exactly how good it feels to play on a perfectly calibrated controller. I don't, because I'm god-awful at Melee. But as a console pleb from the original Xbox era, I have at least some idea. At least more than Dimitri.
And that was the guy who actually knows what he's talking about.
Now, up until 2008, Smashers could just walk into a game store and buy a GameCube controller and hope that it didn't have any of the issues that Colten mentioned. But after Nintendo was hit by a patent infringement lawsuit over their Wii Classic, GameCube, and Wavebird controllers, they were no longer available for purchase in the US. And because third-party controllers were considered pretty bad at the time, American Smash players began importing OEM, or original equipment manufacturer, GameCube controllers from Japan. Nintendo appealed the patent infringement claims and won in 2010, but at that point, players had already found DIY solutions to make their existing controllers feel and perform better. And one of the most common mods was literally cutting shield drop and Firefox notches into the controller's analog stick gates. Shield dropping is a crucial melee technique that lets a player drop through certain platforms while they're shielding. It's only possible by pressing a very specific angle on the controller, one that a custom notch guarantees every time. Meanwhile, Firefox notches allow characters like Fox and Falco to recover easier, and for the player to just generally have more control over their movement. And this is where we come back to the fact that original GameCube controllers are just a crapshoot. Some have sticks that just can't shield drop 100% of the time. Most can't even shield drop in both directions.
Basically, in Melee right now, you have like a big ass lottery, and the lottery tickets are controllers. You buy a new controller, and you're hoping that, oh, I'm gonna win this time. And you don't. And then you can buy another 10 controllers, and they still might not be like the way it should be.
In competitive Melee, controllers are banned if they have turbo buttons, programmable macros, or interfere with the game itself. And notched controllers, technically, don't do any of this. But once players began adding their own notches, some in the community were upset that advanced techniques that they'd spent years mastering were now being trivialized by mods.
I don't understand why, like, because the notches changed, that doesn't mean they're not broken. You have to keep taking steroids, so steroids isn't broken. Like, this guy is so stupid. Melee is a game where the one with the most skill should win, no doubt about that. However, players seem to almost fetishize a very arbitrary skill, especially that which ends up becoming muscle memory. Doing perfect angles is not muscle memory. As for players at the top level, I'd honestly be surprised if Armada/Mutakeem didn't, in caps of course, have custom notches for those angles. They don't. I know this. He should know that I know which controller Armada has because I stay with him. I hate this argument that, like, unless a terrible player that has never won anything can win a major with it, it's not an advantage.
Leffen's strong opinions haven't always been well received by the community, especially when he speaks his truth literally minutes after losing.
I think there should be something that at least makes things run on time.
I mean,
you don't have to agree with me, but I personally, past this year, I won't be competing in Melee if there's no stalling rules.
For a long time, Leffen advocated against the use of controller notches. He believed that using any controller that wasn't OEM was basically cheating and just generally lowered Melee's skill ceiling. But, despite his protests, the majority of the community remained divided on the issue. Some players believed that notches should be allowed, while others thought that Melee should be played with standardized GameCube controllers. After all, that's how the game was designed to be played. The modding community continued to innovate though, and custom controllers became more than just a gamepad. They became works of art.
JP White shell, custom transparent salmon buttons, and C-stick, pink paracord, and it lights up. Okay, it's a bit flamboyant, but there are a lot of practical modifications in this thing too. Shield drop and Firefox notches, a snapback capacitor, a tactile Z button, and shortened springs in both triggers. This was $400.
As you can see, custom GameCube controllers can get pretty pricey. Some people spend hundreds of dollars just to get the exact look and feel that they want. For some, it's even become something of a hobby. Some players have even started installing new motherboards into their GameCube controller's shell to stop stick degradation. Mind you, people have had some mixed results there.
It feels like Zane's doing everything right, but Zane was covering everything.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes you do just get checkmated. Huh? It is a controller issue, 100% confirmed.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's asking the crowd for a spare.
But in 2017, game dev and former Melee competitor Dan Salvato released a mod for the game that could solve all of those pesky controller problems without spending a penny.
If your opponent has a controller that can achieve near perfect consistency, but your controller randomly fails, then you're at an automatic disadvantage before the match even begins. We believe that this unfair imbalance and excessive controller hunting needs to stop, and that's why we developed a solution. UCF is a set of codes that allows any controller to perform just as well as what you'd consider the perfect GameCube controller to be. The mod doesn't make any techniques easier, and it does not enable players to perform actions differently from how they used to. The changes only let you do what's possible with a perfect controller in vanilla Melee.
Now, all of that sounds amazing. In theory, this would eliminate the need for shield notches and other mods people have been making to their controllers over the years. Everyone would finally be on equal footing, right? Well, over the years, Nintendo has made it very clear that they do not allow modifications. Now, it's pretty hard to tell if UCF is on by looking at the game, so using it for events has become something of an open secret. The players likely know because their uncalibrated controllers are finally working as intended, but to the viewers, it all looks the same. So that should be the end of this whole debacle, right? Well, not exactly. You see, over the past 5 years, hitbox-style stickless controllers have made their way into the Melee scene and caused quite a stir. There are buttons that correspond to each input on a GameCube controller, but products like the Smashbox, Frame 1, and the Box allow for arguably even more precision than you could ever get on original hardware. But for Smash players, box controllers may represent even more of an advantage. The button placement can make the timing for certain mechanics, like shield dropping, much easier and more consistent. Not to mention that their ergonomic design makes them preferable for players who suffer from hand pain from using standard issue controllers. And similar to the notch debate, many players refuse to embrace this new meta. This, of course, includes Leffen. But for once, he's not in a small vocal minority. Many top players believe that boxes should either be banned or just nerfed in some way.
I'm like very tempted to like be the trendsetter for this and like potentially do what I did for Ultimate Coin Box. It'll probably give me a lot of flack, but like, you don't know how badly I want to. Mango, Zane, me, you ask any of the top 6 players, they'd be like, yes, go for it.
But box-style controllers grew in popularity during the pandemic when all the events were being held online and monitoring input wasn't exactly the easiest thing to do. Hitboxes in general are a pretty controversial topic within the FGC. We even made an entire video about it last year. But the difference between a GameCube controller and a box-style controller is much larger than the difference between a fight stick and a hitbox, and it's unlikely that most players are going to make that kind of switch. But even players like Leffen, who are historically anti-change, have dedicated time learning to play with a hitbox so they wouldn't fall behind their opponents. Although he previously fought against the use of notches and boxes, he now believes that the battle is essentially lost.
Like, I'm gonna be honest, the fact that people have used box for this long, for like 5 years, and the fact that it hasn't gotten nerfed, there's no way you can't know how broken this is. I feel like they're just intentionally lying when they say that it's not a big advantage.
Needless to say, it's been a pretty jarring period of transition for the Smash community. At this point, most top players have just accepted that even though they may not like the use of boxes, they kind of just have to suck it up.
Is the hitbox, are macros cheating?
Yeah. We've gone too far, so it doesn't matter.
You don't care anymore, so if you're facing someone, you're like, whatever?
My whole thing is we either ban it or we just shut the up and play. And it's not getting banned, so I just try to, you know, like, I don't want to play somebody on it and like already go into the set like mad about it. It's like, well, you know, I just got to deal with it. Since it's not getting banned, what's the point of complaining, right?
And ultimately, that's Melee. Sure, it may not be the way the game was meant to be played, but nothing the Smash scene does is Melee the way it was meant to be played. Plus, it's not like TOs are gonna just inspect every player's controller to see if they've carved their own notches. So if those truly help to improve players' gaming experiences, they might as well use them. Mango said it best: shut up and play. It's not like a better controller is gonna turn a scrub into a god. So maybe the debate is best settled on FD.
Thanks for watching. If you want more content like this, hit the sub button and ring the notification bell. For unique bite-sized videos you won't find anywhere else, hit us up on our Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok.